Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking the top 10 worst movies of 2024. Now, I already did a top 10 best movies of 2024, so if you're interested in that, then go ahead and check it out. But like I explained in that video, this is only really the last 6 months of 2024. Unfortunately, I just did not have that rule of going and watching a new release in the theater every week until about July or August of this year. So there is going to be 6 months or so that I am just kind of missing movies. If there's movies that you feel like should have been on this list but they were released early in the year, that is why. Unfortunately, I just can't really do anything about that except for next year have a more complete list for the entire year. But I did get to 31 total movies for 2024. And if you are new to this channel, then what I do is I review movies and then I rank them based on movies released in the same year, decade, and all time on two separate lists. I have one for entertainment and one for cinematography. Now, entertainment to me, it's just the rewatchability of the movie. How easy is it to watch, and how often am I really going to be rewatching this movie? Now, cinematography is more about movies as an art form. It is about the unique and interesting perspectives or additions to a movie that may not make it more entertaining but do make it unique. Now, I didn't want to just regurgitate the same top 10 from those lists because I do have those lists written in my description in my Letterboxd account, so if you can go check those out at any time. And I wanted to do something a little different, make it a little more unique. So for these movies, I did make a third list for the end of the year that is taking every movie's ranking in both lists and averaging it out, and that third list is about the average. These are the movies that did the worst. They didn't do good in entertainment or cinematography. They pretty much have almost no value to them, and that is what the bottom of this list is going to be about. Every movie I do have on this list is going to get an award, and this is just what stood out to me. This is what made this movie uniquely bad in my opinion. If you're interested in watching the reviews on any of these movies, I have one for every single one that is going to be in this bottom 10. So go ahead and check those out if you're interested. But otherwise, let's get started with number 10 being Gladiator II. And this is going to get my Temu Gladiator Award. It is honestly just the cheaper, worst version of Gladiator. When I think about this movie, all I think about is how I would just rather watch Gladiator. It is pretty much the same story. It doesn't feel unique at all. In fact, they reference the first movie quite a bit in this movie. The whole time I'm watching it, I was just thinking, where is this story? This story is just the same as the first one, but done worse. So if you just want to watch a cheaper, worse version of Gladiator, then this is the movie for you. At number 9, I have It Ends With Us. And this is going to get my Midlife Crisis Award. And the two main actor and actress in this movie, they were just in a midlife crisis. That's all I can think, because they are so much older than the characters feel like they should be. And unfortunately, it shows. You can see it. This just feels like they had a midlife crisis where they wanted to make a romance movie and feel young again. And it just didn't work that well, and unfortunately they chose a book and a story that had a really interesting message in it and had a strong, heartfelt story in it that was popular for a reason, and they kind of just messed it up. They just didn't do a good job, and it shows throughout the entire movie. So if you want to watch a couple people going through midlife crisis, then this is the movie for you. Now, 8th is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And this is going to get my Roller Coaster Line Award. This movie is a lot like a roller coaster line. You're excited for it. You're okay with the fact that you're going to wait an hour and a half. But really, you're only going to have fun with this movie for the last 10 minutes. It's a lot like that roller coaster line where you're just sitting, waiting for the cool thing to happen. And then when it happens, you realize, maybe that wasn't worth the hour and a half wait. This isn't a movie that I hated, but it was just incredibly disappointing. Now, at number 7 is going to be The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And this is going to get the only boring action spy movie award. Now, this is the only movie that has action and spy aspects that I've watched that is just so boring. And it's a hard thing to describe, but I was incredibly bored watching this movie. I think it's because these characters are just, they feel invincible. It doesn't feel like there's actually any threat for them in the entire movie, and so it just makes it really, really boring, which I feel is kind of a hard thing to do with an action spy movie. Those are two genres of movie that are kind of easy to make entertaining, and honestly, I just didn't think they did a good job. Now, at 6th place is going to be Venom: The Last Dance, and this is getting my Wasted Potential Award. This movie really just pissed me off because it was a topic that, if taken a little more seriously, could have been really good. It could have just been an interesting story with it being the 3rd movie in the trilogy, and it could have a real emotional ties because you've been with these characters for that long. But instead, I feel like it was just so half-assed, and the villain was just not good at all for a movie that's probably going to end your trilogy. You don't even have the main bad guy in it. It's just his dogs. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. It was just a complete mess of a movie, and what made me so angry was I knew that it had the potential to be a really good movie. Now, at number 5 is going to be Craven the Hunter. And this is going to get my dumbest origin movie. Whenever I think about this movie, I just think about the way that Craven became Craven in this movie. And it is so stupid. It's so dumb. It looks terrible. The story did not make any sense. While I was watching it, I thought, is this really how he becomes Craven in the comic books? Because this is stupid. It's the one thing that really just stands out in my mind for this movie. I mean, it had a ton of things. It was a mess, but I just think for a movie that's going to be an origin story, could you at least make the origin story cool? Now, number 4 is going to be Borderlands, and this is going to get my Summer Reading Award. This movie, I feel the director is a lot like you when you had to read your summer book. Nobody did. And when you got to school, you just gave the most generic overview of a movie that you read, or overview of the book that you read online. That's what this director did with Borderlands. Borderlands is an interesting game. It has interesting characters and stories, but the director went absolutely as surface level as possible and did not do his research much at all. Didn't care to actually dive into the series and the story and everything behind the video game series and what made it popular. Instead, he just kind of did the summer reading, did a little overlook of what it was about, and then made his own thing, and it was just very generic and surface level. Now, number 3 is going to be Terrifier 3, and this is going to get my You Should Get Checked award. This is a movie that, if you love this movie, you might need to get a psychiatrist. You might need to go see a doctor. There's nothing really good about this movie other than the prosthetics, the actual kills of this movie. But normally, having violent kills, it makes you feel better when you have an interesting story. I don't think the story of this is interesting at all. In fact, I feel like the story is completely a secondary thought to, okay, how can we kill people in the most gruesome way possible and realistic way possible, and then, well, we got to put a story because it does need to be a movie. We can't just kill people for the hell of it. I just didn't enjoy it. I thought it was kind of messed up. I just feel like if you really enjoy these movies, you got something weird with you. I mean, you just love watching people get murdered in the most realistic way possible, in the most brutal way possible. I mean, just, I don't know. I think you should get checked. Now, number 2 is going to be Frogman. And this is going to get my bad because it's cheap award. I actually, for the most part, like Frogman. I think the name is hilarious. I think the idea of wizard frogs that can walk around and have babies with humans, I think that is so out of this world and funny. I just actually kind of enjoy it. But because they didn't have a big budget, a lot of the movie is really, really boring. The acting actually isn't that bad for a cheap movie, but you're just waiting. You're waiting for something to happen. And then the last 10 minutes of this movie awesome. It's so cool. I love it. I think it's so funny and such an interesting part of the story, but it's only the last 10 minutes. But really, this movie, I liked it, but it's bad in a lot of ways just because it was cheaply made. Now, number one, the worst movie of the year is going to be Reagan. And this is getting my How the Hell Did I Learn Nothing award. This movie, I went into it actually kind of interested because I didn't know that much about Reagan. I didn't know enough to actually pinpoint what is going on in the movie because I understood everything that he did throughout his life or presidency. So I was interested to go watch the movie and learn something new. But somehow, for a movie that was about a man's life, I walked out of it learning nothing. The context in this movie is so terribly done. There are a lot of bad aspects to this movie, but that's the biggest sin to me. I just hate that this is a movie I was supposed to learn something new about somebody I didn't know that much about, and ended up walking out of it going, one, I don't know if any of that's true because they were glazing the hell out of this man, and two, there was no context to what was going on, so I never knew what time period it was, I never knew what year it was, and I never really knew what the hell was going on. It would just have a problem and then immediately go to another problem years down the line and not explain what the hell happened, what was the last thing, and now what's this new thing, and it just kept going and going and going, and by the end I was like, I had no idea what I watched. But that's all I've got. That's it. That's the top 10 worst movies of 2024. Well, kind of the last 6 months of 2024. Let me know your thoughts. Have you watched any of these movies? I doubt many of you cared to watch Reagan unless you were over the age of 60. But most of these movies, if I had to recommend one, I would watch Frogman. I do think Frogman was kind of funny and kind of a good movie to just not really care about and throw on. But there is a portion of it that's kind of boring, but I feel like you've got to watch it once. You got to say, I've watched Frogman. But let me know what you thought of any of these movies. If you've seen them, where would you have ranked them? If you want to watch somebody who does something similar to me, then go watch my best friend Bosso Movie Reviews. He does the same thing where he ranks them in the same year, decade, and all time, and he should be coming out with his top 10 list somewhat soon. But make sure to comment a movie that you want me to watch in 2025 and subscribe so you can see me watch that movie and review that movie. That's all I've got. I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.